All right, I think we're going to get started. Since we have 45 minutes, let's just jump in and talk about all the fun components about the Leaders for Global Operations program, or LGO, as it's fondly referred to. Thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Eileen Jacob, and I work on the admissions team here at LGO, our fantastic dual degree program at MIT. So today is meant to give an overview about the LGO program, and I'll be sharing some information about the program structure and some of the logistics. But what's I think even more valuable is hearing from our current students who have taken some time out of their schedules today to join, and they're going to be sharing some of their experiences. I'm going to ask them a few questions as we go through each of the slides. So I'm really looking forward to hearing their perspectives as well. And please feel free, listen and enjoy the conversation, enjoy our students' responses. We will try to save a little bit of time at the end for some general Q&A from all of you to ask our students questions. Please feel free to use the Q&A option on your Zoom menu bar to submit some questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can, but it's always difficult to reach everybody in these sessions. So please always feel free to send a follow-up email to the team, lgo@mit.edu, and we're happy to follow up that way too. So, that being said, let's jump right in. I'm wondering if we can start with our panelists introducing themselves first. So just a little bit who you are, what department you're in, where you're from, and what you were doing before LGO. Maybe we just go across with Ololade, Matthew Chu, and then Matthew Habel. So if that's okay, I'll pass it to you, Ololade.
Yeah, I just realized I was muted. Good afternoon, morning, everybody. My name is Olale. I'm from Nigeria, so I moved from Nigeria for the LGO program. As it's written on the screen, I'm in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science department. Prior to LGO, I worked in the energy sector and utility sector, and I'm in my second year. So nice to meet all of you.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's my turn. So yeah, hi, I'm Matthew. I'm Matthew Chiu, one of the two Matts on this panel. I am from Singapore. I'm in the Nuclear Science Engineering department, and like Olalade, I'm also starting my second year. Prior to this, I was working for Singapore government doing radiation and nuclear detection for the police force and for Customs and Border Protection.
And I am the second Matthew of the panel. Fun fact, we have 3 Matthews in our class. So if you're reaching out to any of the 2023s, just pay attention to the last names. Easy to get us mixed up. I'm from New Jersey. Originally, I went to Rutgers in New Jersey, and I've been up and down the East Coast for most of my career. I'm with the Operations Research Center. And before this, I was a consultant in pharmaceutical consulting for 4 years. I did a mixture of traditional analytics work as well as larger scale ML programs for primarily pharmaceutical organizations.
Terrific. Thanks, everybody. So for everyone listening, as you can tell, we've got a really fun, really accomplished group of students, very wise, as you'll hear as well from their experiences. So let's just jump in. I'm going to start with just a general overview about the LGO program. And so, Leaders for Global Operations is a 2-year dual degree program, as I mentioned before, in which you earn both your master's in engineering as well as your MBA from the Sloan School of Management, all, MIT 2 degrees. Two degrees when you finish, 2 actual physical certificates, which is kind of cool. So you are a full student of the Sloan MBA program and the MIT engineering department in which you are enrolled, as well as the LGO program itself, which has its own office and team and unique structure, as we will learn shortly. This is a pretty unique dual degree program. It's been fully integrated as a dual degree program for about 35 years now, stemming from that demand of striking a balance between business and engineering and technology disciplines. And so as a result, the LGO program has created a really close-knit network of alumni, over about 1,500 or so at this point. And this is a group who is actually still very actively involved with our students in the LGO community. So another feature, as you can see from the image in the center here, is the corporate network, our partner companies who play a pretty significant role. They help fund the program, making it possible to provide on average about 55% of tuition coverage through a scholarship or LGO fellowship, as we call it, for every admitted student who was not otherwise fully funded from another source. They also provide, they guarantee an internship, a research-based internship project, which we'll get into more as well. 6 months at one of their company locations. It's guaranteed. It's also required that students complete this internship at one of the partner companies. And it's interesting too, students are by no means required after they graduate to work at a partner company. Generally, about 40 to 50% of students who graduate end up working at one of them. This past year, the LGO graduating class of 2023 was actually closer to about 70%. So, it just evolves, and depending on interest and what is an opportunity for students, something to think about, and as a great resource too for our students. And so, as you're an LGO student, you're really honing your technical skills to solve problems in operations and technology. And also, just as important, I would say, is gaining the tools to become an innovative leader and making a direct impact within whatever industry you go into next. So that's a little bit of an overview, but let's talk to the students a bit. So, maybe thinking back to when you were in our prospective students' shoes, could you each speak a little bit to how you knew it was the right time to pursue grad school, and if you were debating between dual degree or not? Share a little bit of your thoughts on how you landed on applying to LGO and a dual degree program.
I can kick it off and talk specifically about the dual degree component. I think knowing whether it's the right time is actually a bit of a harder question to answer. So I'll need a little bit of time. Maybe I'll after Matt and Olade give an answer there, I can give a more well thought out version of that. But in terms of the dual degree, for me, it was fairly simple. I didn't feel fully satisfied doing engineering work, and I didn't feel fully satisfied doing just general kind of business strategy or corporate strategy consulting work. As a consultant, if I was put on a project where it was more a bit visioning for a product or thinking about marketing, operations for that product, it was interesting, but I didn't feel fully satisfied without having some core engineering component to it. And that core engineering component in the work that I did typically fell into the AI ML worlds, doing some kind of predictive model, propensity models, for example, unsupervised, maybe clustering, segmentations. That stuff was just so interesting and fun to work with that I had to sort of blend the two worlds. And the converse being, if I just worked in the engineering, well, it felt a little bit, I guess, tunnel vision-y, if you will. I wanted to have one foot also in what this meant for the organizations I work with, what this meant strategically, how this would fit into their operations, what kind of stakeholder buy-in and how you would navigate that you would need for the project to be successful. So in short, it was essentially best of both worlds, right? I didn't feel fully satisfied doing one or the other in isolation. I needed to do both. So when I looked at MBA programs, I considered a couple pure MBAs, but ultimately LGO was the one that really spoke to me because it touched on both.
I could go next. So I think for me, while I was working at the company that I worked for, I'd done like about 6 to 8 roles in different fields and different organizations. And the last one that I had before deciding to apply to the LGO program was as an economist. So I worked as a lead economist for about a year, and having done like a lot of engineering stuff and also seen the side of business, it felt like the right fit for me. So that being said, I kind of felt also stuck where I was working. I needed something different or another experience. So I decided to apply to the LGO program and PhD programs. So I actually was a bit tilted towards the engineering side, even though I wanted to get an MBA because I hadn't done an engineering master's before, so I only had my bachelor's. So it was a good opportunity to do that. And the strategy was either do an MS MBA or get to the PhD and then had an MBA program on top of that. So eventually, after applying and even after getting to like the PhD programs, the reason why I chose the LGO program was because it felt like a very good fit. I spoke to a couple of alumni. I think one of the things that swayed it for me was the involvement of the alumni network in recruiting and in talking to like prospective students. So after I got the offer, I'm sure I spoke to almost 10 alumni that contacted me and emailed me to approach me and talk to me about the program and the benefits. And hearing their own experience, looking at the return on investment and the fact that I had worked for a while, to be honest, before the LGO, I thought maybe this was the right fit. And I can say that spending 1 year in the program, I made the right decision. It was the right pivot for me at the stage I was at in my career. And the experiences that I've gained and people that I've met, it's uncomparable. So
Okay, then I'll go last in this group. So for me, it was a bit different. So coming from Singapore government and doing the work on nuclear radiation detection for them, I wanted to actually go deeper into the field. So it was soon after, it was in 2022 when COVID was already stepping back. So one of the things that was happening at work was I was about to be rotated into a team which I didn't feel any passion for wanting to do. So I was actually looking at trying to change career or change jobs to go a bit more deeper into what I wanted or something similar. But a common theme that occurred at that point was the more I looked, the more I saw the requirement MBA preferred, MBA required for some of those roles. So it was kind of like, I guess it's time for me to look at MBA because truthfully for me, before LGO, MBA was never within my radar at that point in time. So that's why I started looking, and I was still at the point I was like, do I do a pure MBA or do I want to go into my engineering side? Because I was really leaning towards nuclear science. Then one of the professors at MIT who had a close relationship with told me, was like, oh, there is this program at MIT that combines both. So why don't you take a look at it? So that's how I stumbled upon the LGO program. I looked at it, I was like, this gives me everything that I am looking for, the engineering masters to be a technical expert or technically in depth, while giving the MBA, which will allow me to have opportunities for other roles, or even as the program tries to combine the leadership aspect and operational aspects with the technical side. So it was really a good fit for me, and that's how for me I landed on the LGO program.
Terrific. Thanks, everyone. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right. Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about the, well, first of all, the partner companies who are, a pretty significant part of the experience. As I mentioned before, this is just a little quick snapshot of who our current partner companies are. Again, helping to fund some of the fellowship awards that for every admitted student, as well as the guaranteed industry-based research internship. There's also just a lot of exclusive networking opportunities as a result of being an LGO and having direct access to these partner companies. A lot of, starts in the summer when students arrive this week, in fact, for the kickoff of the program and meeting with partner companies over the summer, learning about them. A lot of LGO alumni tend to be at these companies. Definitely great ways to interact and gain some exposure through this network. And, I think our students can also speak to this. If you could share a few specifics of how the partner companies have engaged with you so far, and some of your, maybe your favorite ways that you've gotten to know the partner companies. If anyone wants to add some of that flavor, that would be great.
I could start. So it starts in the summer. Basically, the journey with the partner company starts in the summer when we had like a summer core where they came to do partner introductions and we had the reception. So then you get to meet representatives from the partner companies and they talk about what they do, kind of projects that they've had, the opportunities in the organization. And then we had like some trips where we also went to visit some of the partner companies that were kind of close to Boston. I think for Amgen went to the Rhode Island site. For J&J went to one of their orbs in Boston. So I think that's one way. And then over like the course of our first year, we've had engagements where maybe the operating committee meetings happen and they have like receptions and get to mix with them and talk to them one-on-one. They also share periodic emails. But I think my favorite time was when we went on the domestic plant trek in January, where we actually went to visit a lot of these companies and see where they work, their manufacturing plants, their warehouses. It wasn't just about them coming to meet us. We saw them in their own home turf, see how they worked, and interacted with each other, what values matter to them. And that was actually my favorite way. I think the other way that we have interacted with them is through whenever I want to do like the project. So when you're trying to do your internship and you're trying to rank projects, you get to talk to the partner companies and their representatives about the project and the company and how they work. But my favorite way is definitely the domestic plan track.
Okay, yeah, for me, I have to echo what Ololade said. Definitely the highlight for the partner interactions that was the domestic plan track we do in January. Because you get to really see how they operate and the companies really commit to it. So like for many of the partner companies that we visited, they brought a whole army of people to talk to share their experiences, which is appreciative because you get different aspects. You don't just get one aspect where HR tell you one, maybe the director tell you another. You really get a variety of aspects involved from different sectors, because companies like Amazon, for example, are so large with various different teams doing different things. Each team has its own small culture. So being able to understand how it varies is really helpful. I guess for me, being a nuclear science master's, it was a bit unique because a lot of the companies don't engage in nuclear science work at the moment. But it was actually still a very interesting experience for me because there were some companies like, for example, American Industrial Partners and Next Era who do look at nuclear in certain aspects. So it's good to see the different perspectives. So Next Era is an energy operator. So they want to know, is there a way to make nuclear more viable and cheaper for them to utilize? And as for AIP, which takes a look at trying to build American companies and manufacturing, one of the things that I learned during the domestic plant track was it is a field that they are looking at, but it's too early for them to invest in. But they want to know how things are going to grow in the field so that in the future they could get involved. So there is a lot of interaction, and there's a lot of interaction and engagement from them, even in fields that they're not interested in yet, to understand better where they could go. So I think for me, that's one of the things I like a lot about the engagement by the partners, and also through the domestic plant track.
I would agree. DPT, domestic plant track. It probably means nothing to you guys right now. And Eileen, let us know if you want us to kind of talk more about like what that actually is. But that was a great way to get to know the companies, get in touch with them, see them like face to face, but also behind the scenes. Like they let you into their factories and their warehouse floors. It's really a privileged perspective to be at. The one piece that I'll add to that, which is going a little bit beyond the LGO partners, but still very applicable to LGO partners, is this is going to sound a bit quirky. You're part of like the secret club, if you will. Any one of these companies here, and you have some companies that will be in and out as partners depending on like, their economic changes and whatnot. So sometimes they will more or less invest in the partnership. You have a really strong network of LGOs that are there. And with that implies a very easy way of reaching out and getting in touch with those companies. You can find anyone that has been through the program. It's a large but still small program, if that makes sense, to the point that if you see someone, it's not like they're 7 degrees removed and it's strange to reach out to them. If you have that connection through LGO, they will listen to you, they will respond to your messages, and they'll do the best to get you connected either with them or someone at those companies. So these partner companies, it's a very unique and very strong direct line of contact that the program immediately opens up for you.
Terrific. Yes. And you've touched on some really great characteristics of LGO that we're going to jump into next. And there's a lot of interest too in the chat about the internship experience, the DPT, as was mentioned too, the domestic plant track. So it's you've heard from our students, and a lot of alumni always describe DPT as a really defining part of the LGO experience because it's an incredible bonding experience with your entire class, as well as getting a really unique perspective and get the scoop really out of many companies across the US that you get to visit, access that is not generally available, and learning about how things work, different facilities, just also incredible networking opportunities there. So definitely happy to speak more to that too if there's other questions. I think this picture you see now on the left is a shot from a recent DPT trip, and the Caterpillar visit is very popular, very action oriented, I would say as well. But one of the other big components, as we've discussed a little bit already, is that 6 months that you're spending with a partner company. And this is, both as an educational discovery for the student, aligning, ideally with some of their research interests as an LGO student, as well as meeting the needs of the company and creating impact for them as well. And so a project that doesn't do both of these is not really considered a good project. And so 6 months that is spent, and as you can see too, the majority of students will pursue their internship in the second June of the program, the June start as we refer. Some will start a little bit earlier. The first spring semester is the Feb start. And the next slide will show you a more clear timeline of what that looks like. This is for class credit, because in order to earn that master's at MIT, there's at least a minimum of 6 months of research needed in developing the thesis. And that 6 months for LGO students is on site at one of our companies conducting their research and developing their thesis. They have advisors from both an engineering department and the Sloan School of Management helping and offering guidance as they're putting together their thesis and on site. And so that's why it's for academic credit versus a traditional MBA, 2-year MBA, where it's usually 2 or 3 months between the first and second years that's paid. And this, because it's an LGO academic credit internship experience, it's an unpaid internship. There is a stipend for travel and relocation. But again, this is mostly for your thesis development and the academic side. And so talking a little bit about that, our students are kind of in the thick of it. Would you be able to talk a little bit about maybe where you're interning, how it's going so far? I will also note we are doing another webinar all about the internship experience and how the process works in much more detail. So please check out our events site too and join that if you'd like. That'll go much deeper into this aspect. So sorry, I will pass it off to the students now.
Well, I guess I can start. Technically it's day 3 for me for my internship, so not really much to share at the moment, but I mean, it's pretty interesting for me for 3 days. First, one of the things is that for me, at least when I started on day 1, I got a call from my supervisor and so my project is with Caterpillar. So the main thesis or the main aim that I hope to achieve at the end of 6 months is I can find a framework which could identify a partner that they could work with in the industry to develop modular nuclear reactors for their mining operations. Because the main aim for them in Caterpillar is they want to decarbonize the mining operations globally, so that they can, by using nuclear energy. So key for them is what are the requirements, who are the best partners globally to work with, because there are like maybe about a handful of companies, but each of them have a different kind of reactor type, reactor parameters. So the key is which type do they need and which has the best chance of surviving to a commercial stage, because it takes a lot of investment. So Caterpillar wants to know who they should invest in and work with. So that's the main overall aim of the project. On the first day when they went in, because they are Caterpillar's a partner company for quite some time, they're familiar with the process. So it was actually quite smooth. When they had the first call, they were like, we know that these are your requirements that you need for a thesis, so let's make sure that we keep this in mind. As we move along, things will evolve. So it's very smooth for me at first. Matt Havel knows yesterday, I think there was some system glitch. Caterpillar decided to lock me out, but I just checked it this morning, so it's fine. I'm back in the system, so I think there was just system glitch as we started. So that has been my 3-day experience so far. But overall, it's looking promising, especially on the first day when there was a good impression for set. Like they already knew what to look for. They're like, we're going to work together. Don't worry. We are going to keep in mind that this is part of your thesis. We're not going to give you something that is impossible to achieve by the end of 6 months. And I think that's a really good partnership to have between us as LGO student candidates and the company as well, because you don't want to go in and suddenly realize that they're going to give you a project that you can never achieve, and then your thesis suffers as a result.
Yeah, I could go next because I think I'm probably the only one that started in February among 3 of us on the course. I've been on internship since February. So while I'm answering the question, I saw some questions that I think are very applicable to internship. So I'll try to touch on them in my answer. So like I said in my intro, I actually worked in the energy space before coming into the LGO. So I think the beautiful thing and why I like the LGO program, because I'm pretty sure what I wrote on my application as what I wanted to research in is totally different from what I'm doing now. But that's the beautiful thing. You get to change or evolve or explore a lot of things while in the program. The way the internship process works is the companies submit projects across different fields, analytics, supply chain, biotech, I mean, just name it. And you get to sign up for interviews for the projects you're interested in. So even if you are, I mean, you're someone that has like a totally different background, as long as you have skill set, which is part of why we take classes in the summer and the fall anyway, to prepare you for whatever you require or skill set that you need for the internship, you get to do what you interest you most. And at least there's, like Eileen said, there's a whole process for that, which I want to get into. But right now, my projects, or it's on supply chain and the advanced data analytics. So basically, I'm working on machine learning, artificial intelligence methods, along with stochastic programming and simulation to help determine inventory levels at a biotech company, which, I mean, is totally different industry, but still the same principles across every industry. So the beautiful thing about my project is it's very applicable in any industry, and even in the organization that I'm working in, is applicable in different parts of the organization. So the experience so far has been really cool. Prior to when I even got mapped to the project, I'd already been told about the project details and what it would entail. And coming in, the framing and working hand in hand with my advisors, both engineering and Sloan, has been a very, very, very wonderful experience to mapping out and shaping out the scope of my project and the work that I'm doing on my project. So the way it typically works is most of the people on internship, you get to just be focused on your project, and you hardly, unless, I mean, you're willing, at least where I'm working, you're willing to do that, do other things aside your project scope for the organization. And I think one thing to take from this is you get to see the impact your project has for the organization before you finish or even after you finish, compared to just doing research or textbook research. This is an applied research where in most cases you get to implement them, and you're actually able to, understand the value that you've had for the organization and how we could even impact a lot of organizations in the future. A lot of previous LGO interns have also even gotten papers, like research papers, out of their internship project, and that's something that there's opportunity to do. So I hope that touched on a bit of some of the questions that were asked, and yeah, my experience.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit. I'm one of the June starts, so like Matthew, this is my third day. But what I can share, which I think would still be helpful, is kind of the scope of the project and how Target, which is the company that I'm working with, is approaching this, bringing me on board and expecting for me to deliver value to them. The project focuses on what's called planogram optimization, which is basically as you walk down the store, the planogram is what you see along the aisle. So it's the allocation of the different products, where you place them, how much you stock. What they want to look at is, what do we display? How do we display it? How frequently can we think about replenishing these in a way that maximizes revenue or profitability? That is a very interesting problem, actually a fairly difficult one to model. There are a lot of things going into it, right? For example, how do you choose to represent things in two-dimensional space? How do you think about the replenishment characteristics, right? Do you have to include measures of volatility for these products? Do you have forecasts for these products? If you don't, how do you, do any sort of imputation or think about answering that? So at its core, it's a very interesting engineering project, something I'm excited to work on. The piece that's also quite, I would say, a pleasant surprise is, as they think about this project, you're also expected to think about the business implications. So it's not just, hey, give me a proof of concept, find me a model where I get some locally optimal solution, locally with respect to time. So for the next three months, give me something that's optimal. Well, that's not super valuable for the company, right? They want a solution that is more or less robust over time. As you think about different store types, different seasons, how do you actually change this? So as an LGO, you're not just expected to solve the math problem, you're expected to solve the math problem with respect to all the realistic complications that arise. Like I mentioned, seasonality over time, implementing this, incorporating it into existing systems, thinking about the people side of things, right? That's a very challenging one as well, which I imagine I'd be getting some head nods if I could see you guys on camera, where you've just done core engineering work, thinking about how people ingest this, understand it, and aren't comfortable taking it and rolling with it, it's a very hard thing to do. So it's a very full picture kind of implementation. It's 6 months. Frankly, anything shorter of that, you would not have enough time. But it's one that's very global in scope, and enough to really sink your teeth into.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Some really helpful insights there. And if we have time, we can definitely circle back on some more of the internship specific questions. I will kind of zip through some of the next couple of slides just to give more time to answer some of the questions that have been submitted. But I think this is useful too, and just getting a quick idea of what the structure of the LGO program looks like. It's unique in that it starts in June in the summer semester versus the fall, late August usually. And so that, like I said before, is happening right now for our class of 2025, just kicking off their summer core classes. And I don't know if you can see my mouse scrolling. I'm sort of pointing to what's coming up here, but and then you, as an LGO student, meet your Sloaney classmates, your MBA classmates in the fall with the fall MBA core, and you also get immersed in an ocean, as it's described, an MBA cohort, like another small study group. So it's a really great way to meet more of your MBA classmates. The LGO, sometimes there's questions if they're all like separated from the MBA students, and they're not. They're all mixed within their different cohorts and study groups. The domestic plant trip that was referred to earlier, fantastic experience, 2 to 3 weeks during the month of January before classes start again in February for the spring semester. And then students will either be pursuing their February internship start like Ololade, or taking some elective courses. I forgot to note too, when you kick off your Sloan MBA course, students are also generally taking 1 or 2 engineering classes, some core engineering classes that semester too. So it is very action-packed, to say the least. And then the internship in June, that's kind of a unique time when everybody is on internship. The June starts begin, such as the Matthews, and the Feb starts are kind of finishing up at the last few months of their internship. And then students will either return for the fall for classes or continue with their internship. The second January is a little bit more flexible for MIT students, independent activities period. There's a lot of different resources you can explore there. And then everybody's back together in the spring, usually working on their thesis and bonding and having a lot of fun with their final classes too. So I want to jump over just to the next slide here, just to give an idea of where we landed this year. It's not too different from previous years as far as 5 years of work experience is the average. The GPA about 3.7 is also the average, but please take one thing away is that we do not look for a specific GPA, specific work experience, specific years of work experience or industry or school backgrounds. This is where it tends to fall, a lot of STEM engineering backgrounds and work experience, but there is no specific template. It's a very holistic review process when we are looking at candidates who have interest in alignment with the LGO program. And so there is not one piece of the application that will make or break your chances of admission. A few other data points for this, the class of 2025, which is, if it's of interest to about 42% of the class identify as female, 30% of the students are international students, about 11 to 12% identify as an underrepresented minority. And so there's a lot of wonderful perspectives that are joining this program this year. And like I said, they're just getting started. This is their third day of orientation, which is also pretty neat. We do have more data points on our website too, if you want more of a closer look into the different criteria, some data points about the LGO class of 2025. Just another area too is just, again, just a quick glimpse of some of the diversity resources at LGO. This does not include a huge number of resources and affinity groups that our students participate in through Sloan and the greater MIT community. And more information about some of these wider resources can be found on our website within the student life section. But I want to just speak to the Active Allyship Committee briefly. It was launched by students in 2020, and they've been, every class has sort of added their own flavor and focus for what they want to help in increasing the diversity of the community at LGO, from admissions efforts and expanding where we're recruiting students from, to revisiting who our guest lectures and speaker series topics and perspectives are, as well as course content. I'll pause here for a moment to wonder if any of the students want to comment if they're involved in active allyship or any of the other diversity resources at LGO, and sort of speak to, you know, the type of work that's done.
I can give a quick answer. I'm not directly involved. I know folks that are, Dawn Okoye, for example, Marcelo Aguilar, really, really great people if you want to, at some point look into the work they're doing. What I can share as sort of a outside insider, if you will, is that it's a very clear focus for the program. When we have larger touch points for the LGO community, both the current graduating year, our year, the staff and the leadership team for LGO, this is something that comes up very often. They keep us in touch with how they're trying to work on sort of expanding the class profile to make sure we're touching on areas that we haven't had stronger representation in. And then in addition to that, also what the experience is like within the program, right? Making sure that folks feel included and have a voice there. So definitely a strong focus, but I don't think I'm in the right spot to give a stronger example than that.
So I could speak a little because I'm part of the Active Allyship Committee. And I think over like Eileen said, it was launched in 2020, and the committee took a bit of time, a lot of time to look at the class and even historical composition and some of the challenges we've had at the class, and try to map out a strategy when we started last year. And it's been incredible to see even the partner, the program office is quite involved in helping to map out the ways that the LGO community can become more diverse, more inclusive. And we just even had like a session, I think about 2 weeks ago, where we had the director of the program on the call, like a workshop, trying to talk about some of the challenges with inclusion, diversity in the program, ways we can combat it, what the program office can do to manage some of these things. So that's some of the work that has been doing. For the URM alumni group, I can't say, like I said earlier, about 10 people spoke to me before I joined, and I think 3 of them were from the URM alumni group before I actually decided to accept the program. So even they are invested in ensuring that people like me, women of color, people from diverse programs are represented and have like the ways to join the program. And they are very active in recruiting and ensuring that people will even get the offers. They engage them to show them what the benefits are and encourage them to accept. So there's a lot of involvement. I think the LGO community as a whole, a very close-knit community to be part of, even not just outside these groups, for in general. A lot of the alumni we've spoken to in some of our seminar sessions, and they always find ways to keep in touch with the community and give back. So
yeah, so I'll just round it out. So like Matt, I'm not directly involved in any of the committees, but a lot of our friends are definitely involved, like Ololade. My housemate who just moved out, Mark, was also, I think, the co-chair of the DEI committee. So one of the things that they try to do in the program internally is, so throughout the year, there are various events where they try to encourage sharing of culture or sharing of their identity. So like I believe one of the initiatives this year was to try and do a cultural potluck. So throughout the semester, maybe once a semester, they will organize an event where everybody brings food that's from their own culture, from their own country, and then they share it out so everyone can enjoy it. Then also, I believe it was during, I think it was during fall. I could be wrong in the date, sorry, if no offense to anyone. I think they were celebrating the Day of the Dead. So they organized a Day of the Dead celebration so that they can share the Mexican culture. So it was actually pretty interesting because for me, I'm coming from Asia. I've never experienced that. So it's pretty interesting to see something different, experience a new culture as well. So that's some of the efforts that our peers put in internally once they're in the program to try and encourage interaction between the various cultures as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. And that does speak to just the tip of the iceberg of ways to get involved on campus, which is, I think, a whole other webinar we could cover of that topic alone. So very quickly, I want to just share a quick list here of the application components. It's important to note that at this time, the application for the upcoming cycle is not yet open. It is being updated and reviewed as we speak. So we do anticipate that it will be available and you can start applying if you're interested in joining LGO next June by late July or early August. So check out our website around that time later this summer for more details, as well as on the application timeline of when to submit your application. So we don't anticipate any major changes, if at all, of the list of criteria for the application. All the components will probably be the same. I will note too, sometimes there's questions about a waiver for the GMAT or the GRE, which has been an option in the past few years, overseen by the Sloan School of Management. Just if there are any risks or health risks in safely taking the GMAT or GRE around the COVID-19 pandemic and anything along those lines. So it is still to be determined if that standardized test waiver will continue as an option for this upcoming cycle, but that will also be updated on the website when the application goes live. So you have all the information that you need. And I will also say we have many more coffee chats coming up that will speak to the application, giving tips and diving more specifically into this process. So that being said, I know we're very short on time. So I wonder, first of all, if I want to thank our panelists for being here and wonder if each of you could give some parting advice, anything that you wish you knew when you were applying or looking at grad programs that you think would be useful for those listening today.
It's a tough one. What single piece of advice? I would say if you're looking to a program like this, it's very likely that each of you is already tremendously successful in what you've done. Think about what more you're looking for, right? Is it the network? Is it being able to take a step back and really refine maybe some of the technical skills? I think as you get to what you're looking for and you kind of think about what we've shared here today and what LGO offers, that's the great way of finding whether it would be a good fit for you. Because really one of the most impressive things that I found is just, this is an incredible group of people, really, really high achievers. It's great to have taken classes with them and just hear about their experience and their perspectives. That in itself would have been a reason for me to do this, independent of any kind of individual progression that I've had here. So there are a lot of strong benefits. Think about what you're really looking for in isolation of this program or any others. Just what's really important to you, and then look at what we've kind of discussed here and see if things line up.
Yeah, I think for me, I would just say, just do it, like the Nike. A lot of people that have spoken in the past couple of weeks they wonder whether they can get in, or whether because it's just 50 people that accepted, but I'm a woman of faith, so there's nothing God cannot do. So just do it and start early, and yeah, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, for me, it's echoing what was brought up as well. One of the things for me to share when I share people who ask me about grad studies is basically, what is it you really want? If you can answer that question, what is it you really want, that will be able to answer whether you should apply or where you should apply. As Matt has shared, we've shared our experiences through this program, and this is something that aligns with what you want, then definitely is something to consider. But at the end of the day, make sure that whatever action you take answers that key question. Because for me, that's how I made the decision of how I move forward. That is the same with the classes I'm taking, with the project I'm taking as well. Does it align? What is it I really want? Because that will then guide your situation. One of the things you learn in your first semester in MBA is they ask you to find your North Star, basically a guiding light. For me, that was the question, what do I really want? If you can answer that, I think that's something that you should all think about as you go back, and before you make your decision for the next stage.
That was incredible. Thank you all for really helpful, really thoughtful advice there. And thank you again for joining today and sharing some of your experiences too. Thanks to all those who logged on today. I know it was quite fast. It always goes by so quickly. So if you're interested, if anyone's around later tonight on East Coast time, there is an information session hosted by Sloan. It will be live streamed. If you'd like to log in, check out their events page to sign up for that. If you're in the Cambridge area, I think there's still some spots open if you'd like to register and join in person for the information session. There will be some LGO representation from the LGO team as well as a student on the panel. So we'll be covering even more there. And also please check out our events page on the LGO website. There are many more topic focused webinars and coffee chats around picking an engineering department, the internship process and experience, and much more. So please sign up. We hope to connect with you again. And thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for
Yeah, bye
coming.
everyone.